Make a start. So thank you so much for joining the webinar this morning, which is all about how to improve your confidence to reach your potential. So we've got until 12:45. I'd love this to be an interactive session, so please put some questions, any observations, any kind of feedback or thoughts that you might have in the chat functionality. And I'll also leave kind of 10 minutes at the end so that we can have a Q&A session to get some thoughts and hear some of those kind of burning questions that you have as well. So a little bit about me. I'm Helena Stone. I work with organisations to help increase visibility of female talent. And I do that through a number of ways, but primarily so that organisations can really retain women, also see women moving from those kind of mid-level roles into senior roles, and also help in terms of gender diversity within organisations. I'm also a kind of 20-odd year HR and change practitioner. I'm a coach, and I also work and lead change at Investec Bank here in London, UK. So let us get underway, and I can tell you a little bit more about confidence and what it means. So a number of people always ask me in terms of what is confidence? Is it something that I can have? How do I go about getting it? Is it just some of the lucky few that actually are born with it, and I've got no chance in getting it? Absolutely not the case at all. So confidence is fundamentally a skill. It is something that you can learn. It's something that actually is very much situational. So sometimes we find ourselves in life where actually we're confident in some areas of our life and not other areas. And with confidence, it's about understanding where you are, that confidence. How do I then transfer that into other areas of my life? So in some cases, some of us find ourselves being confident outside of work, but less so in the work environment. We may find that actually we're confident with particular groups of individuals or in particular meetings, for example, where there's familiarity either on the topic or with the relationships that we may have with some of those people. And with like any skill, you really have got to practice it. You have to practice the skill. You have to completely kind of continue to invest on it in order for it to be a skill that you can kind of flex like any other muscle that you have within your body. So confidence is something that you absolutely can build on. It's not just something that the lucky few have the the luxury of having. You can lose confidence, but also you can regain confidence. And when I meet people who talk about the fact that actually they've lost confidence, it can be for a whole host of reasons. It can be for the fact that actually, again, it can be really situational. It can be a type of scenario or kind of event that perhaps has happened either at work or outside of work. It can actually be from a life kind of change that we might be going through. It could be at the time that you have children, or going back to work. It could be through even changes in our family, kind of personal life kind of circumstances, and even like with the COVID-19 and the impact that is having on our lives, on our homes, but also our families and friends as well. So there are a number of things that can affect our confidence. But the really good thing about this is it is a skill, and actually you can really build it and make that happen. Key message for me around confidence is it's very much a journey. So it's not a case of you can kind of come on one of these kind of webinars and when you leave it you can actually build on some stuff. You will absolutely be able to take away some really great things that you can work on. It's about bringing these kind of practices into your day-to-day so that actually they become much more habitual as a habit that allow you to be confident in more ways than others. I ran a questionnaire at the end of the year, and 85% of people find confidence as having that core self-belief around their skills, ability and know-how. And it's that unshakable core where you feel that actually nothing that anybody else is going to say is really going to make me not believe the fact that I'm actually really good or have this ability. But also that I have this potential, which is very much future state that I can grow into. So I'd love to hear in the chat right now, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being kind of most confident, 1 being least confident, where would you say you are on that scale at the moment with your confidence? If you can just pop something into the chat, that'd be great. So, yeah, so we see 5. Any others? Where would you be on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being most confident, And you can see there's a range there appearing on the screen. A lot of them kind of around the 5 marker, going up to probably at most at the moment at the 7. And the great thing is that actually you can build on that, but it's really important to kind of know where you are and how that feels at the moment as well. I guess the other question I want to ask is, using the same scale, so 1 to 10, 10 being most confident, 1 being least confident, where would you like your confidence level to be most of the time? So we can kind of see what those responses start to look like as you key those in. So where would you like your confidence? So it's really interesting. So we start to see a lot of the 8s and 9s popping on the screens. And when I carried out my kind of questionnaire, it was really interesting. Most people were around, said their confidence was around the 6.7%, 6.7 on the scale most of the time, and most people wanted to be around 8.9. So what we're talking about is a really small but significant shift in terms of where people want to be. Let me just put that back up again. The confidence is very much about having that unshakable core sense of belief, but it's also combined with that real positive mindset. It's a mindset that really allows you to be confident at times when you're not going to feel like you're confident. And that happens to all of us, even with those that feel that we're confident, they're an 8 or 9 most of the time. It's having that mindset and that ability to kind of put yourself out there, the fact that you might not be feeling so confident sometimes. There we go. So we're just having some technical button difficulties there. But it really is about the confidence enables us to have the outcome of our thoughts. So the outcome of the thoughts that we think is as the action that we actually take. And so it's incredibly important, when I talk about that mindset, it's incredibly important to have a really good, healthy mindset that is actually enabling you to be confident and not, enabling you. Because those thoughts that we think are fundamentally what enables us to take forward and drive actions. And again, the key point for me to leave you with today is consistent action is the thing that's actually going to fundamentally take you from that current kind of 5 or 6 scale right through to that 8 or 9 that you want to be able to be at. So really interesting, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, so pop these in the chat if you can, but it would be great to know, what would you do if you had more confidence and self-belief? What would be different in your life? How would you behave? What would you be doing that you're not doing today if you had that increase of confidence and self-belief? And it'd be great to see some of those reflections or thoughts that you might have in the chat, and we can hear from people around the room. What would you do? There's a reason that you're on this webinar today. There's something perhaps that you're seeking or wanting to have or do or be that's different from how you are today. So what would it mean to you to have an increase of confidence? You'd speak out more in meetings. We're hearing that a number of times. So speak out more. I'd take more chances in life. Yeah, absolutely. I'd speak up again. I'd take risks. I'd get outside my comfort zone. Most of us actually live in our comfort zone, and actually stepping out can feel really, really challenging and uncomfortable. I'd speak up. Lots of speaking up. Really interesting. People actually using their voice and being able to articulate their thoughts more, or their opinions, or their views, and the contributions that they want to be able to make. I'd be more direct. I'd be sticking up for myself. I love that. Stick up for myself more when I know I need and what I want. And that's really powerful in terms of almost being your best, the best cheerleader. You feel sure, and that really very forward. I'd work more efficient. I'd become alive, moving kind of in terms of progression into roles, and I wouldn't be afraid to take a chance on myself. Chantal, can I just check? I've just had a note saying my internet's not particularly stable, but can I just check that we're still okay and you can see and hear me all right?
Yeah, I can still hear you and see you. You seem to be okay at the moment.
Brilliant. Just let me know if that changes. Thank you.
Will do.
So it's been great to kind of hear what you would do. Sorry. But actually, again, on this survey that I ran, this is what people would say, and a lot of the things that you've already said yourself here, that people would fundamentally take risks. They would be stepping outside their comfort zone. They wouldn't be worrying about what other people are thinking, or they wouldn't be worrying about the fact that they haven't mastered something, haven't been perfecting it within an inch of its life. Actually, would be much more gung-ho and going for what they want. They'd start their own business. They'd ask for flexibility. So I ran this survey kind of pre-COVID, but they talked hugely about actually wanting to seek flexibility at work, in terms of how they worked, etc. They step outside their comfort zone. As I said, most of us actually live inside our comfort zone. It feels incredibly nice. It feels comfortable. It feels like a good place to be. I know a lot. I'm really familiar with people in my comfort zone, or the kind of thing that I might do, or my skills, or my hobbies. Actually, growth comes from outside the comfort zone. And actually, when we step outside the comfort zone, that's when it can initially feel uncomfortable, because we go through certain phases before we kind of master some of those new skills and feelings. But it's a great way, absolutely, to grow. I would take more chances, and I would be happier. It's so interesting, and this is just coming from a shift of those people that were saying that on that same scale of 1 to 10, they were around the kind of 6.9. They wanted to be able to move to the 8.9, and just by moving up by 2 up that scale, these are some of the things that people said that they would do if they had more confidence. We're not talking about a huge shift that you would need to make. It might feel like a huge shift, but actually there's so much to gain from this. And I think the thing that's really fundamental here is the potential that this can really give you. So when we think about where we are today, we have a good idea about how confidence feels and what it feels like, some of the good stuff and the bad stuff, depending on where you are on that scale. But actually, you know, most of us have some aspiration and some goals around you know, how and where we want to be and how we want to live our lives. And confidence is not just from a work context, it's kind of the whole life kind of thing. And so when we talk about potential, we're talking about our future state. Not only are we talking about building and improving and growing on our confidence, but we're also talking about unlocking that potential within ourselves. You know, when you feel that you have that capacity to grow, you don't necessarily always know where or how, but actually you feel that capacity in a way that actually you know there's a greater potential for you to be able to do. And what I love here is this really succinct description, which is, well, talent, which is our ability to naturally do and perform, that potential refers to the possibility of doing pretty much where we are today. The potential really requires training, coaching, and development. You know, to be able to kind of progress and to move to the level of kind of changes that we need to make, whether it's something that you're able to take away from the webinar today, whether it's training, you know, a combination of a number of those things, it's that enables us to realize that potential and move into very much that kind of future state. So what is it that stops you being confident? So one of the key things about confidence is really having the self-awareness about where you are now. What is it that's actually getting in the way of you being, feeling, and acting confident? And there are a number of things that stop us. And the first thing I would really encourage you to do is to start to become much more aware of what it is that's stopping you. Because different things will stop us. There'll definitely be some trends and some patterns across all of us, but there'll be things that will be really unique to each of us that actually stops us from being confident. So the first thing is about really be getting aware of that. And I'd love to hear in the chat, what is it that you know today that actually gets in the way and stops you being confident? And it might be that actually you're trying to do something or to say something, like a number of you said that you want to be able to speak up, or you want to be able to take more risks or come outside of your comfort zone. When you're wanting to do these things, what does that feel like and what's stopping you? So again, I'd love to just hear in the chat, what is it that you know today that's actually getting in the way of you being confident? So fear of looking silly if I'm wrong, self-doubt, yeah, I've got a new role, so yeah, that can be really tricky. Reach my goals at work and personally. Comparing myself to others, that is an incredibly slippery slope. I think when we compare ourselves to others, we're using others as our bench sticker or bench yard. And if we're using others, then we're probably using several other people as our benchmark, but actually we're not using ourselves in that process. And so we're very much looking to others to compare, and then we kind of tend to say, well, we're not as good as those individuals. And the other thing is we then sometimes look for external validation. We want others to validate our confidence, as opposed to actually it coming from within. What stops us is perfectionism, worried about being judgment of others, the inner voice telling me that other people will think I'm incompetent. That's the negative internal dialogue that goes on. Shyness or others' perceptions that I'm shy as well can get in the way. Fear of getting it wrong and worrying about what others think. And this is a big thing because we do put a huge emphasis on what other people think about us. And it's really interesting if we were to, sometimes we find ourselves giving a huge amount of thought about what others think about us, but do you actually give much thought about what others are doing? When you see other people, and I tend to find that actually we don't. We just overly worry or allow our mental energy to be consumed by that fear of what others might think of us. A lack of knowledge might stop us. Imposter syndrome, and it's my mother's voice. That's really interesting. It's not my own voice, but it's hearing my mum in my head. Getting fired for showing that you're not at the level required. So there's something there about not necessarily believing in yourself. And I think the thing about confidence is about having that power where you feel that you can be vulnerable to say, I'm not sure about this. I don't know how to go about doing this. I'm new in role. I'd love some support. I don't quite know the culture or the people or your ways of working. I need development in this areas. And whilst we're definitely seeing, I'd say over the last kind of 5 years or so, much more move to this, not in all organisations, but certainly in some, where we're encouraging vulnerability. It's also about you developing confidence that allows you to talk about help and support that you need and the feelings that you have. Because if you were able to talk to people and people in the workplace about some of this stuff, you would feel much more supported. Therefore, we would feel like we could turn up and show who we are today. But equally, we wouldn't fear failure so much as well. That's really great, and thanks so much for sharing that. And again, in this questionnaire that I ran, the top 3 things that people said that got in the way of them being confident was self-doubt. They doubted their own ability or how they saw themselves on an ongoing, and a kind of a regular basis. Self-doubt was huge. That was the top thing. The other thing was fear of judgment of others. So worrying about what others think about what I'm doing, how I look, how I contribute, whether they think I'm any good, as opposed to actually, what do you think about yourself? What do you know about your contributions in the way that you're able to engage with others? And the other thing was negative self-talk. Like what we've just seen and heard there was, worrying about, again, how the internal dialogue or how we talk to ourselves about what other people might be saying about us, how they may be viewing us, how they may be thinking about our performance or our contribution, how my mum might be seeing things. And so earlier on, when I was talking about confidence being made up of self-belief and a positive mindset, this is where it's really critical that we actually need to dampen down that negative self-talk, because that is consuming and therefore having a huge impact on your ability to be and to be confident. So I want to share with you some strategies, some things that will help. There's 3 that I will share with you. You might find that actually all 3 work for you, or actually just one of them is great for you, but hopefully there's something there for everybody to be able to take away. So the first one I want to share with you is understanding and having kind of forefront of mind your prior successful experiences. We have all had experiences that haven't been great, me included, when we haven't been confident. But equally, we definitely have times when we have been incredibly confident. You know, when you feel that you've been on fire, it's been magical, it's been totally amazing. You couldn't have even wished for it to gone as well as it has, but actually it's gone fabulously well. And it's about actually not losing sight of those prior experiences, because depending on how well balanced our mind is with really great stuff about ourselves, or actually whether we've got that negative self-talk and dialogue, how much, you know, we all have it, but it's how much of that. We can sometimes find ourselves, the moment we're in a situation of wanting to speak up, actually not speaking up, and instantly drawing back to either a bad experience or that negative internal dialogue. And what we're trying to do here is have forefront of mind all those great rich experiences that have actually you've had and will enable you to kind of springboard forward into the future. The way in which to do this is to first of all kind of almost recall those experiences, and it might be a case of a bit of a mind map, what was going on, what was the situation, what did I wear, what did it feel like, what do I remember about that day, that time of year, who was there, who was in the room, what was going on. It's about kind of really capturing those prior successful experiences. They don't necessarily have to be big experiences. They might be a feeling. So it might be that actually you felt, when I was in that situation, I just felt completely comfortable being me. I felt I was able to speak up and contribute. I wasn't worried about what other people were thinking, whereas in other situations I have been. So it's about being really clear on those prior successful experiences. I would really encourage you to jot them down, to go into some of the detail like you see here in the screen. The key thing about doing that is to see if there's any patterns. Are there any patterns emerging about when I'm really confident, when I feel really sure of myself and I have that self-belief? Because understanding if there are any patterns, it's about, well, how do I build those into more situations so that I can be confident as well? And so that's the other thing. So it's about recalling them. It's about actually spotting patterns, and spotting patterns so that actually you can build that stuff into how you are going to be confident in the future. But then it's also about being really clear of, you've jotted all of these down. Let's relive them a little bit in our mind. Let's relive them and let's package them up so we have them forefront of mind. Because what you're trying to do is that when you're in that situation where maybe ordinarily you haven't been confident and you want to be, it's about actually drawing on that as opposed to your mind instantly going to, this isn't going to work. And then that negative self-talk comes in and then it actually stops you. It's about having this kind of stuff that says, actually, this is fantastic. I've been able to do this. I'm going to really keep thinking about this, because actually when I'm in this situation, I want to be able to draw on that. So again, it's making a really small shift in your mind on that one. The other one is about quite often when I speak to people, self, and so we all have that kind of inner dialogue, that little voice inside that talks to us, and it's about knowing, what does that voice generally say? What are the patterns? How much of that is positive, reinforcing all the great things about yourself, but how much of that is actually detrimental, and you're probably not talking to yourself in a really kind way? So what I would encourage you to do is to start to get really clear on, what is that dialogue like? How am I actually talking to myself? And to jot that down over the next kind of 5 to 7 days, just so that you start to get a feel for what that is like. And I wanted to give you a bit of an example here. So some of the positive, you might have literally like a positive and a negative column. And the positive will be, for example, I've noticed that when I talk to myself, I say things like, I performed well. And what you want to be able to do is to capture the language and the words that you're using when you talk to yourself, because that's really key as an enabler for you to be confident. It might be, I performed well, or I was in a situation and I said to myself, oh my God, I can do this. I wasn't thinking, oh my God, that's going to be absolutely rubbish, I'm not going to be able to do this. But instead, I said to myself, I can really do this. Or another example would be, and we've seen this on some of the chat that you've kind of mentioned, is the fear of failure, or I'm new to a job, or actually I don't believe in my skill and my ability. But actually you might have a positive dialogue that says, I'm going to give it a go. I don't know X, Y, and Z, but actually that doesn't really matter. And my dialogue is, I'm going to give it a go. Whereas when you look at the negative dialogue, you might have something along the lines of this. So again, you might be in a situation, you might be wanting to try something new. It could be a hobby, it could be saying moving into new.
So the thing here is, once you know how you're talking to yourself, is where do you need to make some changes in that dialogue. So if it's negative and you're saying, I'm not very good at this, it's then about understanding how you could flip that and what you're going to replace it with. And it could be something as, I'm going to get better at, I will practice, I am good enough. So we'll see. Okay, and the third and final one is a 5-second rule. So I don't know if anybody's heard of this, but it's a fantastic rule by a lady called Mel Robbins, who is a great author and motivational speaker as well. But she talks about the fact that actually we have 5 seconds from the moment a thought comes into our mind to act on it before actually our thoughts take over and our feelings and basically rugby tackle us to the ground and stop us from acting. So, for example, when you want to do something and you want to speak up in that meeting, like we've seen and heard from people on the call today, from that kind of initial impetus of wanting to do something, you've literally got that 5 seconds. So you go kind of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and that's your window in which to speak, act, do whatever you're going to be able to do. And I really want you to notice, when you don't act within that kind of amount of time, what happens is your chance of being able to act actually reduces. The longer you leave it, the much harder it becomes for you to do what you originally had anticipated or wanted to do. And that's because your mind is coming in, talking you out of, or saying that actually it's a really kind of dumb idea that you want to put across, somebody else is going to be way better. And then moments later you hear the thing or the question that you had, somebody else saying it in the room and everybody else saying how amazing or what a great contribution that was. So the whole thing about the 5-second rule is about the moment that you have that instinct of wanting to do something, go and do it, because your feelings will take over your brain and actually, as I say, rugby tackle you to the ground and really stop you. So this is about using a really quick hack in order to be able to take action sooner so that you can start to see changes in your behaviour. Because the more that you do, the more action that you take, you'll build momentum and you will start to see changes with regards to how confident you are feeling and being. They're the kind of three strategies that I want to share with you. I hope there's something in there for everybody. Sorry, and I'm just conscious that with my technical issues, we're a little bit kind of short on time, and I definitely want to leave some time for questions. But I'm also running a paper session at the beginning of next month. If anybody on the call would like to join that. That's when I talk a little bit about my confidence program, which starts at the beginning of July. It's a 3-month program which would be delivered via Zoom, but it would be one-to-one and group work as well. And it's a series of interactions. So if you want to join that, email me and you can join on the 5th of June. That'd be lovely to see you there. And before I close out, it would be fantastic to take some questions from you all. So I think, Chantal, if we can, it'd be, if you want to put your hand up and speak live, that would be really great to hear from you. Or equally, if you wanted to put something in the chat, I'm very happy to pick up questions from there as well. So feel free to come forward and ask me any questions about what I've shared so far, the strategies, or even just a little bit about yourself and how it feels with your confidence at where it's at today.